I did not plan to go far that morning. Winter had settled in quietly, the kind that does not howl or throw snow in your face, but presses down with cold and silence. The air felt heavier than usual, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The trees stood stiff, their branches holding thin white lines of frost that glittered faintly when the light shifted. Snow creaked softly under my boots with every step. I had walked that forest trail for years in all seasons. I knew where the ground dipped without warning, where the creek froze first and cracked last, where deer usually crossed at dawn, and where the wind always cut through your coat no matter how thick it was. That morning felt ordinary, too ordinary to remember, the kind of morning you expect to fade into the others, until it suddenly refuses to do so. I was halfway down the old logging path when I heard the sound. It was not a howl, not a growl either. It was a short, broken noise, low and strained, like air being forced out of something heavy that could not fully breathe. The sound did not belong to the forest. I stopped walking without thinking. At my age, you learn to stop before you understand why. The sound came again, closer this time, off the path, somewhere below the ridge. I listened. The forest around me stayed unnaturally still. No birds, no wind through the branches. Just that sound, uneven and desperate. I stepped aside slowly, pushing a branch out of the way, careful not to snap it. Even the smallest noise felt too loud in that silence. The forest opened just enough for me to see the clearing below. At first, my eyes refused to make sense of what I was seeing. There was movement on the snow, dark against white. Something thick and coiled, shifting with slow, deliberate force. Its body moved with purpose, not panic. And beneath it, fur. Gray fur dusted with ice crystals, rising and falling too fast to be steady. A wolf. My chest tightened before my mind caught up. I had seen wolves before. Tracks crossing the road after a storm. Distant shapes slipping between trees. Eyes reflecting light for a second before vanishing. But never this close, never like this, never helpless. The snake was massive, longer than my pickup truck, thick as a fence post in places. Its scales were dull in the winter light, dark and cold-looking, blending too easily with the shadows on the snow. Its body wrapped around the wolf's chest and belly, each coil tightening a little more every time the animal struggled. This was not a strike anymore. This was the end of a hunt that had already gone too far to be undone. The wolf tried to stand. Her legs slipped on the packed snow, claws scraping weakly for grip. She managed to lift herself for a second, then fell back down, breath tearing out of her in short, painful bursts. When she twisted, I saw the curve of her body, heavy and round even beneath the tension of the coils. She was pregnant. That detail hit me harder than the rest. I do not know why it stood out so sharply. Maybe because I had children once, and then grandchildren. Maybe because even in the wild, some things feel wrong when they are cut short without reason. I stayed still, frozen in more ways than one. Every rule I had learned over a lifetime whispered the same warning. Do not interfere. This was nature. The snake needed to eat. The wolf had lost. But rules are easier to repeat than they are to live with when you are standing right there, watching breath slip away. The snake tightened again. I could see it clearly now, the slow contraction, controlled and patient. The wolf's head dropped to the snow, her mouth open, breath fogging weakly before fading into thin air. One eye rolled toward the tree line, unfocused, searching for something that was no longer there. That was when she saw me. Her eye locked onto mine. There was no fear in it, no challenge, just something raw and unfinished. A look that did not ask for rescue, only acknowledged the moment. I had seen that look before years ago, on a road after an accident, when someone realizes help has arrived too late, and still cannot look away. I stepped back without thinking, my boot crunching softly on the frozen snow. The snake reacted instantly. Its head lifted, tongue flicking in quick, sharp movements. It loosened one coil, just enough to adjust its grip, testing whether I mattered. The wolf's body sagged as the pressure shifted, her movement growing weaker. My heart hammered so hard, I could feel it in my throat. I was not armed. No rifle. No knife worth mentioning. Just an old man in a coat that had seen better winters, and hands that were no longer steady by default. You walk away now, a voice in my head said. You walk away and forget this. You will still sleep tonight. I took another step back. Then the wolf made a sound. It was not loud. It barely carried through the cold air. But it was final, the kind of sound you make when there is nothing left to save, when the body understands before the mind does. Something inside me broke open. I thought of my wife. Gone 10 winters now. I thought of the mornings I still set 2 cups on the table before remembering there would only be one. I thought of all the times I had told myself that staying out of things was wisdom. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is just fear with a cleaner name. Bent down slowly and picked up the thickest fallen branch I could find. It was heavy, rough with ice, biting into my palms even through my gloves. My hand shook as I lifted it. The snake watched me now, body tense, deciding whether I was a threat or just another tree that would not move. I did not shout. I did not run. I took 1 step forward. The snow crunched under my boot, loud as a gunshot in the quiet forest. The wolf's eye focused again, just for a moment, enough for me to know she was still there. I raised the branch, knowing that once I crossed that invisible line, there would be no clean way back. No pretending later that I had done all I could by walking away. I did not know if I would succeed. I did not know if I would survive. All I knew was that I could not pretend I had seen nothing, and so I moved. I stepped into the clearing and the cold hit my lungs like a fist. Up close, the snake did not look like a story anymore. It looked like muscle and weight and hunger. The coils were set deep into the wolf's fur, pressing so hard the hair stood in ridges. The wolf's paws scratched at the snow, leaving shallow lines that went nowhere. My hands tightened on the branch. It was the only thing between me and an animal that could wrap itself around my ribs the same way. I forced myself to breathe slowly. If you move like panic, everything around you answers with panic. I took another step. The snake's head lifted. Its tongue flicked, tasting the air. It shifted a coil, not to loosen, but to get better leverage. The wolf's body jerked once, then sagged again. I heard myself speak, low and steady. Easy, easy now. I raised the branch and brought it down hard, not on the snake's head, but on the thickest coil I could reach. The wood thudded against scales. The snake tightened in response, as if pain made it more determined. The wolf let out a rough breath that sounded like a cough. I tried again, sliding the branch under the coil like a lever. I pushed down with both hands, using my weight. My boots slipped. Snow sprayed. The branch groaned. The coil lifted a fraction. The wolf's chest expanded for the first time like it actually could. The snake reacted fast. Its head snapped toward me, mouth opening. I jerked back. The strike hit the branch instead of my wrist. The impact rattled my arms. The branch nearly flew out of my hands. I stumbled, caught myself, and felt the sharp sting of ice slicing through my glove where the bark had split. The snake pulled back and struck again. This time it hit my coat sleeve and slid off, more of a shove than a bite. But it told me enough. It was not afraid of me. I shoved the branch under the coil again and leaned into it with everything I had. My joints screamed. My breath came out in harsh clouds. The snake's body rippled, trying to tighten. The coil rose another inch. The wolf's front leg twitched, then planted. She tried to pull herself forward, but the snake still held her midsection. Her back legs kicked weakly. "Come on," I whispered, and then hated myself for saying it. I reached down, grabbed the wolf by the thick fur at her shoulder, and pulled. My fingers sank into ice and hair. She was heavier than I expected. She did not bite me. She only tried to move. The snake tightened, and pain shot through my arms. For a second, my vision went narrow. Then I heard something else, a low sound from the tree line. Not the wolf, not the snake. From the left side of the clearing, a shape appeared between the trunks. Then another. Then another. Wolves. They did not rush. They spread out, quiet as smoke, forming a loose half circle. Their eyes were on the snake first, then on me. My mouth went dry. I forced my voice out. I'm not here to hurt her. The biggest wolf, darker along the back, stepped forward a few feet. Its ears were up, head low, watching. I could feel the snake moving under the branch, trying to slip free of the pressure. I could feel the wolf's body trying to breathe. I did not have the strength for a long fight. If the pack decided I was a threat, I would not get a second chance. So I eased the branch down, not letting go, just changing the angle, keeping space between the coil and the wolf's chest. With my other hand, I pulled the wolf forward again, slow, controlled, giving her room to slide out. The snake struck toward my knee. I kicked back in time. The teeth scraped fabric. It did not latch, but it was close enough to make my stomach drop. The pack noticed. The biggest wolf gave a short warning sound. Two others shifted closer to the snake, their bodies tense, ready. They did not attack it. They watched me, as if I was the tool they did not trust, but might use. My hands burned from cold and strain. I leaned into the branch again and shoved. The coil lifted just enough. The wolf pulled, dragging herself forward, claws scraping. Her shoulder cleared the pressure. Then her ribs. The snake tried to follow, sliding its weight, but the pack stepped in closer, not biting, just showing presence, forcing the snake to hesitate. That hesitation was all the wolf needed. She slipped free. She collapsed on the snow, chest heaving. Her breath came in ragged pulls, but it was breath. The snake uncoiled fast, angry and confused. It lifted its head again, deciding whether to come at me or go for her. The pack moved as one, closing the space, eyes fixed, bodies steady. The snake paused, tongue flicking, and then turned, sliding toward the edge of the clearing, choosing escape over a fight it could not finish. In seconds it was gone into the brush, leaving only a wide trail in the snow. My legs started shaking now that the worst part was over. I wanted to sit down, but I stayed standing. The pregnant wolf gathered her legs under her and stood swaying. She took one step, then another, moving toward the trees where the pack waited. I let the branch drop to the snow and kept my hands open. I said quiet, "She's yours. I'm done." The biggest wolf stopped within a few yards of me, close enough that I could see frost on its whiskers. It stared, steady and unreadable. Behind it, the pack stayed spread out, watching every breath I took. The wolf paused at the edge of the trees. She did not look back like a pet. She only checked that the pack was with her, then slipped into the timber. I stood alone in the clearing with the snake's track carved into the snow. My eyes followed that wide trail. Something about it bothered me. A snake like that should not be here, not in this cold, not this high. I knew what lived in these woods. I knew what did not. I walked a few steps toward the trail, careful, listening. The track led downhill to a shallow ravine where the snow was thinner. An old drainage pipe ran under the logging road. Warm air breathed out of it, faint but real, carrying a smell that did not belong. Fuel, old plastic, stale human garbage. I looked back over my shoulder. The pack had not left. They were in the trees, spaced out, watching me the way they had watched the snake. No snarls, no charge. Just a silent pressure that kept me in my place. It felt like a warning. I swallowed and spoke softly, mostly for myself. All right, I'm going. I backed away from the ravine and started up the slope toward my trail, slow and careful. Branches creaked behind me, soft footsteps. The pack moved with me, shadowing the path. I did not run. I just kept walking, understanding something I had not wanted to understand. The rescue was only the first part. Now I had to face why that python was here at all. The days that followed settled into a strange, uneasy quiet. I went back to my routines because that is what you do when something shakes you. You split wood until your shoulders ache. You check the fence line even though it has not moved in years. You clear snow from the steps even when no one is coming. Habit keeps the hands busy when the mind refuses to rest. The forest returned to its winter sounds, branches ticking in the cold, wind moving slow and steady through the pines. Everything looked the same, but I was not the same man who had walked that logging path. My hands ached more than usual, the strain settling deep into the joints. The scrape on my knuckle took its time healing, opening again whenever I worked in the cold. At night, when the house was still and the walls creaked with temperature, I found myself listening, not for danger, but for understanding. I kept thinking about the drainage pipe, the warmth breathing out of somewhere it should not have. Human waste, careless and forgotten, changing paths it never meant to touch, drawing things into places they did not belong. I did not go back to the ravine. Not that week. A few days later, snow fell again, light and clean, the kind that softens edges and hides mistakes. It covered the old tracks completely. The snake's trio vanished first. Then the marks from the struggle blurred and disappeared. The clearing became just another blank space between trees, no different from 100 others. If I had not been there, no one would have known what happened. That thought stayed with me longer than it should have. A week passed. On a gray afternoon, I walked down to the edge of my property, where the forest thins and the land opens toward the frozen creek. It was a habit from years ago, checking that nothing had shifted after the storms, that no tree had come down across the path. I moved slower now, careful with my knees, careful with my footing on the ice. I heard nothing before I saw them. Across the creek, between the trunks, shapes stood still. 4 of them at first, spaced apart like markers. Then another stepped forward from behind a pine taller, heavier through the shoulders, the pack. They were thinner now, winter showing on their ribs, but strong in the way animals are when they endure. They did not cross the creek. They did not lower their heads or bare teeth. They simply stood, watching, as if measuring the space between us. My first instinct was to stop. So I did. We stayed like that for a long moment, the frozen water between us, distance doing the work words never could. The biggest wolf stood near the center, darker along the back. I recognized the shape of it without knowing how, the way you recognize a voice you have only heard once. Then I saw her. She was farther back, half hidden by brush. She stood with care, her stance wider and deliberate, weight balanced as if she was guarding something unseen. The curve of her body was still there, but steadier now, no longer strained. She did not move toward me. She did not move away. The pregnant wolf. My chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with something heavier and quieter, relief mixed with restraint. I had no way of knowing how she was truly doing, what the coming weeks would bring her. I did not need to. I rested my hands on my knees, not in weakness, but to show I was not going closer. The cold bit through my coat and settled into my back. My breath drifted between us and disappeared before it reached the creek. I spoke because silence sometimes feels too much like hiding. "You're all right." The words sounded small when they left my mouth. They were not meant for them alone. They were for me too. The pack did not react. No sound, no movement. Only eyes steady and aware, taking in every shift of my weight. After a while, the biggest wolf turned its head slightly, just enough to check the others. A quiet signal passed through them, something practiced and calm. One by one, they shifted their weight, angling their bodies back toward the trees. They were leaving. Before they did, the pregnant wolf lifted her head and looked straight at me. There was no message in it that I could explain later. No promise, no warning, just recognition, clear and complete. Then she turned and followed the pack into the trees, their shapes dissolving into the timber as if they had never been there at all. I stayed where I was until the forest closed behind them and the space across the creek felt empty again. The walk back to the house felt longer than usual, not because of distance, but because my thoughts finally had room to move. I understood then that what I had done did not make me part of their world. It did not give me any claim or place. It only placed me briefly alongside it, close enough to see and then let go. That night, as I sat by the window with a cold cup of coffee in my hands, I noticed tracks along the far edge of the clearing near my fence. Not crossing, not approaching, just there, passing through, keeping their distance. A reminder. Winter continued. I reported the drainage pipe to the county office, the way I should have before. I did not dress it up or add weight to it. I said what I had seen and where. A few weeks later, a crew came out and sealed it properly. The warm breath stopped. The smell faded. Life returned to its shape. Spring came slow that year. When the snow finally pulled back from the creek, I found prints along the bank, small ones mixed with larger tracks, pressed into the mud and already softening at the edges. I did not follow them. I did not need to. Some things are not meant to be followed. I stood there for a while, listening to water move again, thinking about how close everything is to breaking, and how little it takes, sometimes, to keep it from doing so. I did not save the forest. I did not change the rules of nature. I only made one choice when I could not look away. Sometimes, that is enough.
Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories. And now just click the playlist or the next video on your screen.